All right, welcome back to What's Up Canada, ladies and gentlemen, boys, girls, grannies, and gators. It is Tuesday, September 17th, and oh, baby ducks, are things going sideways for the young global brats? I mean, young global leaders, aka the Party of Canada. Welcome back, guys. It's going to be an adventure as always. If you're new here, please smash that subscribe button. If you weren't following me, you should be. Make sure you hit that thumbs up and platform share wherever it is that you're tuning in. Almost a little bit late here. One of the platforms didn't load, so kind of had me scrambling here last split second to get on, but looks like if we're having any audio, my mic is still messed up. What the heck? Um, I'm going to do something I never do and try unplugging. How about now? Can you guys hear me now? I just switched my mic off completely. Can you guys hear me? It's going to take a couple of seconds. I don't know what's going on with my regular mic. This is a brand new issue. Looks like we're back. Don't know what's going on. Seems to be something to do with the dashboard interfacing with the microphone. I know that StreamYard's my panel is going through some changes, adaptations. Everything seems to be going through that mode here right now. A couple of my software tools have just sent me notification, carbon tax, inflation, they're doubling this month too. So just part and parcel for it. Guys, they're always making changes and messing around with stuff. So unfortunately, I would love to blame 100% of it on the censorship, but it isn't always the case. Sometimes it is just solo air jockeys or media jockeys that can't quite keep up with the advancements and the changes in tech. So, yeah, anybody been able to keep up to the insanity that's going on? Right? I mean, the two more scandals today, still not caught up to last week. And yeah, they're definitely hitting the ground running. And so we're gonna have a lot to cover and probably still won't get through a good portion of it. But a big one we'll get into right away, right after we get through a little bit of the housekeeping, guys. As always, I should refresh that. We had a show last night. The where you go to get all of the receipts, the bits and pieces, everything that we cover in a story here. You can find the video. This is all available on Substack for free, and this is what I mean by all the receipts, the graphics, all of the links, everything that we cover in the in the day, the show the night before. You find it all here, as well as all the places where you can find and support this platform, this channel, as well as connect with this platform and this channel. So this is all available free on Substack. The fastest way to Substack is through the website, whatsupcanada.org. And yeah, you can watch the shows here as well as get plugged into everything else that we're doing. Had some really big meetings today, more coming up. Over the next couple of days, I'll be able to get caught up on putting some of it onto the website and the platform. So where are we going to start today? With something that I found a little bit unnerving. This is not here. This is a video captured from market surveillance in Lebanon, where, if you hadn't heard, somebody triggered explosives in pagers. So pagers are apparently available to some people with bad intentions, that have explosives in them. And this kind of, when I first heard about this story, I'm going to play the video for you here without volume, but uh, maybe, maybe I'll play the video. That's not going to work either. There we go. It's only a couple of seconds. We'll play through it here a couple of times. But this reminded me of a story that I covered here a couple of years ago about why we should fear the military within the CCP China, looking at the fact that within their helmets, they have explosive charges, within their helmets in case they forget to live up to their family honor. Their leaders can make sure that. So this is person here has got something in his bag here, a pager apparently, and yeah, it exploded. So the count is apparently 9 dead and several hundred wounded, all over the place in Lebanon. Really, kind of makes me wonder, what can they do if they really, really want to, right? Kind of scary stuff, right? We really don't know. We buy them, we use them, they run them, they control them. We have the illusion of choice on these devices, right? Scary shit. So the breaking news in Canada today was a couple of by-elections yesterday, and this, once a year it kind of happens that I'll be forced to play a CBC clip here on What's Up Canada. As much as it disturbs me to do so, I need to do so because of one of the comments they made within this analysis. I'm going to play the whole thing. It's 7 minutes, and in all fairness to these guys, this was as basic a breakdown as required for this. I know, Stefan. Oh no, CBC. But there's a part of this video that's really important for Canadians to understand, and you probably won't catch it. If you guys were just watching this report, you wouldn't catch it. But there was also comments made in the House today in Parliament that directly reflect something in this article. So I want you guys to hear this, simply because I didn't want to take down the names of these people.
We begin this Tuesday morning with breaking by-election news from overnight. Results from 2 critical races that may set the stage for the next federal election. And they're sure to shift the mood on Parliament Hill this morning. In Winnipeg, the NDP defends a party stronghold. But in Montreal, word just in this morning, a major upset for the Liberals. The Bloc Québécois has eked out a win in what was a long-time safe Liberal riding.
So the first thing I want to say there is the NDP winning this seat in Winnipeg, absolutely irrelevant point. The only reason they were having this election in this seat in Winnipeg is because the guy that was holding it, the incumbent, left to go to the provincial party, which just won in Manitoba last year. So he got a promotion. The seat came open, so there's not much is going to change within that election. The NDP got it back with a new replacement placement. But
these are the preliminary results from La Salle et Verdun. Coming in, well, most of the country was asleep.
Get to know this guy, Louis-Philippe Sauvé.
The Bloc Québécois candidate, Louis-Philippe Sauvé, defeating Liberal Laura Palestini by just 248 votes.
What do you think the odds are of them challenging that? It would have to be the Liberals to challenge that. They're within a couple hundred votes. We'll see.
And this is video from the Bloc headquarters late last night before the race was called past 2 o'clock Eastern. Cameras, most of them had gone home by then. But you can see the atmosphere was jubilant even before Sauvé's lead was official. For the federal Liberals, it will be just the opposite today. This vote will be seen as a repudiation of the party and of Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's leadership. So we will be watching for reaction very closely. It is the first cabinet meeting of this new parliamentary sitting, and ministers will be gathering for that.
Gonna pause here for a couple of comments. Just too good to not. Good. The less liberals in the country, the better. Careful your poison, and I'll explain why a little later for sure. Save comes from the Montreal Mayor's office. He was city councillor for Valerie Plante. Ew, good to know. I see this is why I love doing this with you guys. Some of you guys know these ridings and these people in the swamp much better than I do, so I can get to learn while we're talking about important stuff. And this is going to come out more important. And I know I'm being a little cryptic, guys. Bear with me. This is kind of
Later
a bit of
this morning in
vindication for
Ottawa.
me.
Now, looking at the results, the NDP a close third in that Montreal race, but New Democrats celebrating this morning because they held on in Winnipeg
Banana
against a tough
Canada. No
Conservative
kidding, Carol.
campaign. And here are the results for the riding of Elmwood-Transcona. Leila Daza coming in at ahead of her Conservative opponent, Colin Reynolds, by just over 1,000 votes. So that's 48.1% of the total vote. So that is the celebration last night, just past 11 o'clock local time. A tighter win than the NDP is used to in Elmwood-Transcona.
She looks
NDP has held the
mortified.
seat in the community for most of the past 4 decades.
Deer in
And
the
in the
headlight or
previous
what?
version of the riding
Oh
as
my
well, it was
gosh.
before the map was redrawn. Leila Dance
Gosh
is
isn't the
a new
first word I've
candidate, a
used.
first-timer. Former MP Daniel Blakey stepped down to work for the Manitoba New Democrats provincially under Premier Wab Kinew. So all of that to set up a big day of parliamentary news. We're going to dig further into the breaking by-election results, what they mean for this new political landscape. Janice McGregor in extra early. We're happy you've given us an extra hour this morning, Janice. So let's start. Just not too long ago, before coming on the air, the Liberal defeat in that long-time Liberal riding.
Good morning, Heather. Yeah, one of the big storylines in this town this fall is the dramatic shift in momentum for the Bloc Québécois. Because remember, while the NDP and the Liberals had their agreement, it didn't really matter how the BQ caucus voted. They didn't need them to pass anything. And now, though, things have changed. The third party in the House of Commons holds the balance of power.
I
The
don't
deputy
understand
House
that
leader for the Bloc
either.
Québécois, Christine Normandin, you saw her beside her colleague there as he celebrated his victory. She told our colleagues on the Power and Politics by-election special last night that at a time when the Federalist parties are really increasingly snarky towards each other, Quebec voters really appreciate the Bloc's singular focus on their province's interests.
So there it is. The singular focus on their province's interests. I've gotten a lot of people don't like the idea of separation and the conversations that it's going to force. And I don't think that we get away from the conversations
Comes no surprise
that
to
they're
anyone. The Bloc
talking
Québécois
about.
does want an independent Quebec. We will succeed one day.
Whoa.
Everyone who works with us
Where'd that
here in Ottawa,
happen?
they know that we are.
That's the next clip. But here's why. Here's why I've been trying to prepare people that whether you like it or not, whether you want it or not, whether you believe in the party system or not, whether you're campaigning for any candidate or not, these guys have the ability to pull the carpet out from every Canadian's feet. And now they are emboldened. And listen to this. Now, I'll just listen
Comes
to
no
this first.
surprise to anyone. The Bloc Québécois does want an independent Quebec. We will succeed one day. Everyone who works with us here in Ottawa, they know that we are independentists, that we want independence. And they know that eventually Quebec will become a country. Thank you.
And that's the part that I didn't want to force you guys to.
Quebec. We will succeed.
That should have stopped. That was the part I didn't want to make you guys suffer through the rest of the CBC to hear them talk about was they push for separatism. That's coming. And if they don't get what they want, they'll push for separatism. And now they're openly stating it in the House, and they're taking seats away from the Liberals. So this is going to have an impact. So whether people have liked what I've been talking about or not, they're gonna have to figure out the difference between de facto and de jure, sovereignty or not sovereignty, what the differences are, and and that's it's not separation. It's claiming the sovereignty that was given to them as an option in 1931. Whether we like it or not, we got to get educated on the damn subject. It's not separation. Everything since 1931 has been a lie. Our entire lives have been a lie. So this is unfortunately what these guys hear. They know how to extort it. They know how to work it because they know the truth of it. So it's not, and I keep seeing these comments. It's not let them go, and you have no idea what the impact is going to be. There is at that point, if they do take it, it's not letting them go. We don't get a choice in the matter. They get to do that. And the rest of us are fucked. Then we have no law, we have no judiciary, we have no management, we have no control. Everything else has to start from scratch. Well, that's a hard reboot for everybody. And none of us have a clue about going through that process. That's the danger zone of these guys. It's not letting them go. They're going to go. They're going to do it. And they are going to steal as much from our government or the syndicate in power as they can before they go. And it should come as no surprise. They want an independent Quebec. They will succeed. And this is what they've been waiting for, 100%. And nobody's telling you guys the truth. Everybody's talking political party. You know what? There's nothing to vote for if they do that. So that's the danger zone of why I've been trying to poke people into understanding what the hell de facto is, what it means, what the implications are. And, nobody wants to look at the carpet. Nobody notices the carpet they're standing on. Nobody in Canada does. Tom, you get it. That will be what breaks Canada. They are, through blackmail and treason, threatening to break Canada. So it doesn't matter what group or organization or political party you represent, it isn't going to matter, right? So this is de facto is criminal, 100%. 100% they're going to blackmail everybody. That's what they're doing right now, is blackmailing everybody. That's part of it, 100%. Horizons is funding them, poking them, telling the Indigenous they can do it. Telling them they can do it too. And the sad part of it is that word salad language, that Indigenous term, just means people that are all born here. They're not going to actually end up with anything else unless we agree with it. They're going to they're a part of the carbon they already want to reduce, right? So at the end of the day, people don't want to fix shit until they absolutely have no choice but to fix it. And that's the part that I'm trying to warn Canadians about, is guess what? It's going to come time to have to fix all of it. But meanwhile, in the Grand Theater, where all of the swamp zombies hang out, working for the new young global cult leaders,
well, first of all,
what
I
they
want
have
to
to say.
congratulate everyone who stepped up in putting their name on a ballot at a time where we know politics is a challenging moment. I also want to highlight the thousands upon thousands of volunteers who stepped out.
I do, Tom. That was when he was asked why he wasn't going to attempt to get a Security Council seat on the UN Security Council. And he said had to say he can't, because we're not a sovereign nation. We're a de facto nation. The rest of the world sees it. The rest of the world knows it. Canadians just are freaking oblivious.
Lots for our party, but lots for other parties as well, to show that people are still very much engaged. At the same
Absolutely
time, we
stressed.
need people to be more engaged. We need people to understand what's at stake in this upcoming election. Obviously, it would have been nicer to be able to win and hold Verdun, but
Me
there's
either.
more work to do, and we're going to
If
stay
you find
focused
it,
on
get it
doing
to me.
it. There's all sorts of reflections to take on that, but the big thing is to make sure that Canadians understand that the choice they get to make in the next election about the kind of country we are really matters, and that's the work we're going to continue to do.
You know, it's a tough loss for us, but just because you lose the battle doesn't mean you don't continue with
Chief
the fight.
Nazi capping
And I
seal.
think that the next election is going to be very consequential for Canadians. And so we have to do a better job of demonstrating to Canadians what our vision is, what we stand for, and what it is that we're going to do for them moving forward into the future.
No, listen, the first thing I would say is that today,
I cannot
what we need
stand
to
this,
be, it's not
Vernon.
exact, obviously, it's not what we expected as the outcome. We need to be humble. You know, every time Canadians express themselves, we have to listen and be humble. I would
Humble.
say we need to redouble efforts as well to show that the Liberal team is the best team to deliver for Quebecers and making sure that their interests are well represented in Ottawa. It's also a time to say thank you to all the candidates and volunteers. Now, a lot of people have put a lot of hours in this day and age to do politics is more challenging. So I want to thank them. And listen, saying clearly to Quebecer that the Bloc won't be able to block the Conservatives. And if we want to maintain what we have achieved for Quebec, but the rest of the nation over the last few years, we'll need to work together and make sure that they understand we're the best option for them here in Ottawa.
Why should Justin Trudeau stay on as Prime Minister after this?
Well, because like I said, I think, you know, what Canadians have told us in many ways, at least what I read from that, is that there's concern, there's anxiety, and I think they're ready for a positive vision of the country. And I think if that's someone who can really inspire Canadians is Justin Trudeau. He's been clear that he's going to be our leader to the next election. We're going to be working with him. We're going to be putting the team. I mean, look at the candidate we have been able to attract.
He must have been reading Melania Jolie's headlines if he's got nothing but the nothing to see here party line, right? And so this is, you know, kind of one of the the impetuses behind the headline of our show tonight, reading between the Liberal lines. Yeah, nothing to see here, folks. The gaslighting, they're all just hunky-dory here in Canada in the
There's a lot
Liberal
of people
Party.
coming to say, listen, I want to preserve, because the real issue in my view in the next election, in which society you want to live in, who would you trust to give the keys of your house? What you see that we have achieved, you would like to continue. And I think when people are going to be voting, it's not really about asking, what is this vote going to do for me? But what is this vote going to do for our country? And I think when you talk to folks on the street, and trust me, a number of you were with me in the streets, people stopping me all the time and say, you know, Minister, we understand it's not easy, but keep on the good fight. We need someone in our corner.
I wish the election result would have been different, and I can say that we have work to do, and we're going to do that work for Montrealers, for Quebecers, and for Canadians.
Of course, we heard loud and clear what the results last night. These are not the results that we were looking for. At the same time, we need to deliver on the priorities of Canadians. And for my part, I'll do my job and I'll continue to defend Canada's interests around the world at a time where there's lots of tensions and conflicts, and Canadians expect me to do that job. What Canadians, and particularly Quebecers and Montrealers, said to us last night is that they want us to deliver on their priorities. And what I heard by doing a lot of, you know, door to door, is people think that things are too expensive, that it's difficult to make ends meet. And we hear them, I hear them. And we need to do more to address the question of affordability. Groceries are too expensive. You know, rent is too expensive. And so we'll have tough conversations. And that's why.
So, yeah, nothing but gas, lies, party line.
Welcome back to the National Post Politics Bureau, where...
Sorry about that, guys. Got something else up on deck. Everybody's favorite talking tater tot. The point of that is reading between the lines. They just got their ass handed to them in one of the oldest ridings, held by many previous prime ministers. they're getting busted in more scandals. We'll get to a couple of those. So when you start to stack it up, there's no way in the world that the ringleaders of the Liberal coven should be out there saying that, sunshine and lollipops, nothing to see here, folks. And this is the Talking Tater Tots response.
Before diving into the new mortgage rules, I'd just like to
We're going to talk
say
about
a
that
couple
later
of
on.
words about the Canadian economy. We've had some positive news over the past few months. We have now had inflation down within the Bank of Canada's target range for 7 months in a row. And in July, inflation hit a 40-month low. We've seen the Bank of Canada lead the G7 in cutting interest rates. Canada has now been the first G7 country to cut interest rates for the first time, the first G7 country to cut interest rates for the second time, and the first G7 country to cut interest rates for the third time. It looks as if a soft landing is in sight.
Such a lie.
We've now seen wages outpacing inflation for 18 months in a row. That is really important for hardworking Canadians because it means their paychecks have more purchasing power.
Such a load of crap. I cannot help but enjoy your comment there, Mountain Man. This comment's moving pretty quick today. I've got a video. I should probably pull that up next, but that's just going to make everybody really angry. So I'll wait till just before I send you all home before I tell you about some of the issues discovered in the housing markets today. But I almost started with this one because Ursula von der Leyen had such a a great intro for us all yesterday into what treason looks like and crimes against our own people. But she kind of fell down the priority list a little bit. But fear not, we've got 30 seconds from Ursula on what's going on over in the EU that you need to know.
Here is mine. So everyone who is fully vaccinated or tested negative or has recovered from COVID can get one. And we have right now 15 member states that have already signed up. And from the 1st of July, all 27 member states have to apply these EU digital certificates for the COVID. And
all 27 member nations are going to be required, according to her, to have the EU digital certificate. So that's plan's not going so well for her. But meanwhile, here in Canada, y'all should kind of get a little bit more of an idea of what that health certificate might look like here.
The RCMP has expanded its surveillance capabilities over the past 5 years, adopting advanced technologies that raise significant privacy concerns. The RCMP now employs covert software to infiltrate digital devices, accessing communications, screenshots, and even activating cameras and microphones, representing a major breach of privacy. Cell site simulators, which mimic cell towers to collect data from nearby devices, raise concerns about tracking innocent individuals alongside suspects.
You can have power, but the more you use it, the more likely it is to be corrupted. Humans are very predictable in that sense. We already know that they're not willing to go after organized criminals. We already know that they protect our politicians, who we know are doing corrupt and criminal things. These people have already shown that they're not acting in a fair and just way for Canadians at scale. They're sort of telling you to self-censor because I've already got these tools and I'm already watching you. That's what it feels like a little bit, right? Because if you know, hey, I can infiltrate your digital device, I can listen to you, I can see you. You go, I'm definitely going to curb some of the things that I'm saying.
When it comes to surveillance in totalitarian regimes, is what you were just pointing out there is exactly the reason they employ these things, is because they know that people act differently when those people know that they're being observed. It automatically drives forward obedience within the population if everyone thinks they're under surveillance all the time.
So, yeah, I thought that was a a really relevant clip for people to understand what our policing and enforcement agencies are all about, and how we're kind of self-censor, or we're self-training ourselves to be those obedient servants, and don't say anything. We're training ourselves for 1984 through the intimidation and the abuse, the psychological abuse, and the censorship that they do actually engage in. And man, it's been running rampant the last little while. So, 100% they're turning us into a surveillance state. And why? What would you call that if not for a surveillance state? When you look at, and I've seen here, a couple of people have been mentioning it here, about Bill C-293 passing second reading today. As expected, that's why Trudeau stacked the Senate, and that bill, when it gets through, allows for this, all of this that they want, all of this that they want, all of everything else that they want, is going to fall under the purview of that law and bill, right? So this is an interesting indicator of how things might not be going so swell for Mr. Singh. And I'd like your guys' thoughts on this. Just as a human and as a politician, is this appropriate behavior for Mr. Singh? So he's asked if he's going, if will he give a vote of non-confidence today if it comes up. Ignores somebody else. Because he's being ignored, somebody makes a derogatory comment. Whoa! Trigger pull.
What? Want to say something? Say nothing? What you say that? Got something to say?
Or is that just because the cops all of a sudden are surrounding him that he feels he should or could or has justified in this behavior?
I didn't say corrupted bastard, but I said. What you said? No, I did not say that. Who said it? Somebody behind you said that. Was it me? Was it you? No. You sure? If it was me, I'd admit it, buddy. Was it you or not? If it was me, I'd admit it. What'd you say then? I didn't say nothing. It wasn't me. It was a gentleman behind me, I guess. Who is it then? Point it out. I have no idea who it was, buddy. My word. You sure it's not you? No. 100%. You're a coward. You're not going to say it's my face. That's what's on it. Say what? If I said something like that to you, I'd admit it. All right. Now, I asked you if a confidence vote came up to you.
With that aggression, is that why you're choosing war with Russia?
So that was Brian Lilly came out and said that good for Singh for standing up, for getting called out in such a way. And, oftentimes I agree with Brian Lilly's take. This time I do not. This guy's an elected official. He is the leader of a party. If he can't stand a little bit of heckling, he's got no business being in the business. This was an intimidation tactic that he engaged. He was feeling pissy and surrounded by guys with guns and thugs, knowing that there was almost no one around, highly unlikely for it to turn into anything, and he decided to turn into a tough guy. And so this to me is an absolute abuse of character and position, and I do not agree with his. In that guy's shaking his finger, at that point, I have to commend the guy for being restrained, because somebody's going to come and wag their finger in my grill like that. They got a broken effing finger. That's what's going to happen. Right? So some of these people out there clapping for Jay because he stood up for himself, go F yourself. He's a slimy piece of swamp shite. And I don't believe that he's worthy of the title honorable anything, right? So this on to one of the other shit show stories that is the daily norm in Canada. Do you remember when Trudeau was elected, he said that he would make Canada the first post-nation state, and if we didn't like it, we would be replaced. Everything thought he was a babbling idiot. They all thought he was joking, right? Well, guess what? He wasn't really joking. There's I just pulled it up. Post from Nikki P. Crave Creative. For anyone who believes that population replacement through migration is a myth, foreign-born population grew by 5.1 million in the last 2 years. 5.1 million in 2 years. And here's a report on it, and I'll make sure you guys get a hold of this report, because that is an invasion. Doesn't matter what their anybody's self-righteous, it's invasion. 100% invasion. I heard a kind of a term earlier today, and I'm going to I'm typing in into the chat box something that I think we all need to wrap our brains around and make re-migration great again. What does that mean? Re-migration. If they migrated here, re-migrate them home. Re-migration. Send them home. Let's make this the most viral hashtag in Canada over the next little while. I think I've got it into almost all of the chats except maybe Facebook. But yeah, remigration, send them home. 5.1 million people from 36. That is a massive, massive, unsustainable, catastrophic, suicidal invasion. And then people wonder why they're shitting beside the bus terminals in downtown Toronto even anymore. I mean, they're not even waiting to get to the beach. They're doing it right beside the bus stop, right? And meanwhile, Green Jesus, one of the other swamp zombies, criminals against Canada, traitors, permanent, lifelong, career achieving, the highest achievements of any eco-terrorist in the history of Canada belongs to Stéphane Gilbeau. And he's just gotten busted again. So cheer this one, guys, a little bit, and don't let this go. This guy belongs in behind bars awaiting his name to be called at the docket, not in a committee chair meeting. But listen to some of this scandal that he's finally getting a little bit of his own stank on.
Well, unfortunately, reported today, another day, another Liberal scandal.
Right.
And this time, Mr. Chair, it's out of the Department of Environment and Climate Change, whereby we have Minister Guilbeault, who has overseen a failed audit by federal auditors.
Failed audit.
Poor oversight over
Imagine
millions, once again, millions of dollars in green subsidies, and not a small amount, Mr. Chair. $625 million since 2016. You know, we've seen a very bad track record here from the
2 million people using the food bank, but this slug gets away with stealing 600 and some odd $million again. Another one of these slugs gets away with it.
Government in terms of the Green Slush Fund, the studies we've undertaken here, including ArriveCan, where the concurrence motion is in the House today. But here we have today another report of $625 million since 2016, having failed a federal audit. And the federal audit team indicates that there are significant issues. 45 programs over 11 departments and agencies, no evidence of definite outcomes, no set targets, no measuring and monitoring, of impacts, and there is no clear guidance to support decisions by programs. The audit report also indicates errors and inconsistencies in the work, including incorrect information, erroneous information, missing information, incorrect terms, and project files missing in entirety, something we also have seen with procurement evaluations by this government in the past. In fact, Mr. Chair,
entire
the
files
audit team
missing.
deems that this was so sloppy, and that's quite a word, sloppy, you know.
Sloppy.
This is
It's not
unfortunate,
sloppy.
inconsistent, incomplete, but sloppy, that it poses potential legal and reputational damage to the department. So very concerning, Mr. Chair. So as a result, Mr. Chair, I am moving this motion now, which
I don't
has
know
been
her.
provided to the clerk in both official languages, which I would ask for distribution to the committee, that given the Environment Department has failed its audit of administration of grants and contributions for poor oversight of millions of taxpayer dollars spent on green subsidies and the potential legal and
Of course.
reputational damage this presents, the committee dedicate at least 3 meetings to this matter and call on the following witnesses to testify. Deputy Minister Jean-François Tremblay, Assistant Deputy Minister John Moffat, Assistant Deputy Minister of Corporate Services and Finance and Chief Financial Officer Linda Drainville, Director General, Chief Audit Executive and Head of Evaluation Christopher McDonald, authors of the Administration of Grants and Contributions at Environment and Climate Change Canada, and finally, Madame Annie Boudreau, who is, of course, Comptroller General of Canada. I know that
Get him in there. Let's get some testimony.
distribution of funds is something that everyone on this committee is committed to. And I'm also aware that this government has prided itself on a number of green initiatives, which we see every day to
Green
be
scams,
ever failing.
green crime.
And if not only is there concern regarding the procurement, but that they are able to deliver in their said priority of work on climate change and emissions reduction. And this is just another proof point, in addition to the carbon tax, I'll add, Mr. Chair, that this is not working for them. And here we have another failure here today with this reported failure of an audit coming out of the Department of Environment and Climate Change. And Minister Guilbeault, the felon himself in the green not green, pardon me, he'd like it to be green, I'm sure, orange jumpsuit, is at the helm of this. And so as a result of this, on behalf of Canadians, I'm asking for the committee, please, to consider this motion I have put forward today. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
So this is I think one that we have to light the internet waves on fire about, guys. Exactly, green means cash to them. They should be held personally responsible, take the money of their bank accounts. It's all about the green subsidies, and 100% there should be charges. They've violated this guy. I love the way she had the Freudian slip there. Oh, the green jumpsuit. Oh, and, the orange jumpsuit. Yeah, they're just 100%. That's why we don't get anything happening. We know it's all fake. We know it's all a scam. We know that it's all about grabbing the cash. And these committees are toothless unless we, the people, make enough of a stink. And this is where it gets interesting, guys. Some people were saying it, and I don't know this lady, but she's also a WEF swamp creature, a swamp zombie. Well, then what better entertainment is there than to throw gas on the fire of swamp zombies throwing each other under the bus? Oh, let's keep it up, right? So I genuinely believe they do know what's going on. Stephanie Kuzi from Calgary, I'll be looking into her. Nothing is being done. If you can't tell my level of frustration today, I agree. This is becoming a problem. Seen it, not that I can verify anything of it yet, but there's more to that story that's going to be coming out very soon. Yeah, get your money into the banks, buy gold, silver, nickel. Exactly, Bob Bartlett. Just money laundering by the Liberals. They should be arrested, and this is kind of the point of this here with the Liberal Party. Absolutely like a rocket sled on rails with its hair on fire and booster jets on, is going off the edge of the cliff. And they're on their way out, they're sinking, and they're stealing every last thing that they can on their way out the door. This is, like the jewelry heist, and they're still grabbing stuff on the run out the door. That's what basically the Liberal Party is doing. And this is one of the things that needs to be fixed. You're 100% right, Tom. The system doesn't have any real accountability. And that's a whole other conversation that I get in trouble for having. But basically, since Little Child 1992, yeah, I will have to look into her more closely. Yes, Becky, you might not be a regular here. We talk about Bill C 293 every single day. I'll bring up a link. People need to to get involved in that. Uh, Made Made makes more parts available. 100%. Did you know that Made murder by the state is the third leading cause of premature death in Canada, and the government is starting to withhold special services, medical treatments on people if until they've met with somebody and decided that MAID for sure isn't a thing for them. But you have to meet with the MAID person before they'll give you treatment in Canada. There's a lot that needs to be changed. So, but yeah, for Bill 293, yeah, I'm not sure who that comment was from, but absolutely, the biggest act of treason in the history of words assembled on paper in an attempt to kill this country and everything that it stands for is Bill C-293, no doubt about it. Yes, Bill C-63, Bill C-65, Bill C-36, and that's what we've been railing on about here for the last little while. I don't know if you're new here, Becky. There is no political solution to this. These guys are all a part of the swamp zombie family, and without demolishing or abolishing the Senate immediately, nothing will ever change in this country again, because it doesn't matter who you put in. You could put a turtle into the Prime Minister's office and give him 100% of the seats, and no bill will ever get past the WEF gatekeepers after that. So we need to get in front of this government. We need to do this now during election season. And why is this so important now? Because of what the people in Quebec who know how to extort these WEF swamp zombies, they've got the goods on the swamp zombies. Quebec can make out absolutely perfectly. The rest of Canada will get absolutely pillaged. Why? Because we don't know what Quebec knows. But yeah, so that's where, the onus is on us. Defend ourselves accordingly, learn what you need to know, and it isn't just about how to put your socks on, right? So this is a little bit of a longer video. I've only got a couple more videos queued up for us tonight here, so we're not going to run too long, but this is important for people to get a grip on and to put things into perspective. Now, I don't agree with the terminology of far right, but people that don't understand history are doomed to repeat it. And right now we are going through a cycle of almost perfect harmony with some previous history. And that includes Europe, and what's going on in Europe absolutely is going to have an impact here. We're all facing the same evil, and it's all from the top down. The terminology doesn't matter as much as the message that you're going to get from this Austrian commentator, right? And this is the land of Viktor Orban over in Hungary. This is next to him in Austria, where the little black mustache guy was originally born. Listen to what's going on there and what's going on in the rest of Europe. This is critical information. You will not get this on anything resembling mercenary media.
Austria is on the verge of rejecting immigrants and even deporting them as the country lurches to the far right in upcoming elections. Whilst here in the UK, the EU establishment will be getting panicky right now. Austrian elections are looming, and the anti-migration and repatriation far right is on the rise there. But there's more, so much more. The Austrians go to the ballot boxes on Sunday, September the 29th, to elect a new lower house, the National Council. And the indications are that a right-wing populist party, the Freedom Party of Austria, the FPO, led by Herbert Kickl, will win the day, or at least the most seats. That would leapfrog them from their current third place with 16.2% of the vote and 31 seats into first place. And with the FPO at 30% in the current polls, it could get 55 to 60 seats. And if the FPO continues its fast rise in these polls, then who knows? We could be witnessing a rise in power that would send more shockwaves through the European political establishment, following directly on the heels of the shockwaves caused by the AfD's very recent surge in the German state elections in Thuringia and Saxony.
So if you're not aware what happened in Germany, they just went through elections and basically had to steal it with the closest lie they could come up with, which was a minority, so kind of a coalition government. So same thing in the like in the UK, where the majority doesn't get to win because that's not the way the seats are set up. Exactly like Trudeau got into power. Minority governments. They stole the damn election in Germany to prevent what these guys are talking about in Austria from happening in Germany. So the people of Germany, they do not want to be on the battlefield in Ukraine. They are done with all of these reindeer games. They want to have a hashtag remigration too and start sending some of those people home. This has spilled over through this European Freedom Party. Remember we talked about that a couple of months back, where Viktor Orban was quickly rallying a group of people that had this kind of mindset and thinking. Well, as that has been catching up to the electorate in some of these European nations, the globalists are getting their asses handed to them politically, and they are mad scrambling, trying to make stealing elections plausible. And so kind of what's going on here. I see your Kevin, World War III is what they do when they can't maintain any of the lies anywhere anymore. So they wipe this. They basically do an etch-a-sketch with a big war. So this is what they're trying to get to, is that escalation to big war. They're working on it hard. They're desperate. I mean, this is, when you look at attempt number 2 on Mr. T, well, that's what it's about. They're losing control. So if they don't silence humanity, bring it back into alignment from the top, the nations that actually believe in freedom, that would lead the charge against this kind of evil and oppression, if we were to know and understand it, they're desperate. They're 100% desperate. You see Trudeau, looking gaunt, tater tot, sniffling. They're all, whacked out, cracked out, wacko, and sing, turning back into a street thug. These guys are absolutely desperate. So we cannot give them the division, the civil war that they seek. That's what they need to continue with their process and ultimately expand the war in Russia. And there, Putin has been incredibly reserved in what he could have done. He could have turned Ukraine into a nuclear wasteland or a moonscape a long time ago. But like him or hate him doesn't matter. He's the only adult in the room when you look at the meat muppets and the swamp zombies that we're dealing with. So I hope that answers your question in respect to WW3. And I see another comment here. Good point. I was kind of referring to static warfare, what people think of as warfare, but the reality of it is we have been at war for a number of years. We didn't declare this war. This war didn't get publicly declared in parliaments and senates and White Houses. This was a war waged upon we the people, unsuspecting and innocent, by our own inward-looking oligarchies and demagogueries, and they have captured our governments in their entirety, and they are waging war against any who might resist. So the war is ongoing. We're not getting out of this. It's not going to just fade away with the change of political party, right? Because they're both contractually obligated here in Canada to fulfilling, passing the baton back and forth towards each other, and that's where Trump is the singular disruptor on the political scape outside of Russia, Putin, China, who Putin just decreed a couple of days ago. So this is kind of interesting to note that they're growing their military again, and they will, within the next 90 days, be the second largest military in the world. So there's that. These guys, these meat muppets here, think that with their woke, gender neutral military, that they are going to be able to stand on guard for anything is absolutely delusional. So when these guys do stupid shit like provoke Russia, saying, "Oh yeah, go ahead, Zelensky, shoot longer range missiles," and this barking chihuahua in Ottawa called Trudeau says, "Yeah, go ahead, do it." Putin's patience will not last forever. Russians don't bluff, and he's got stronger backers in his gang than the meat muppets over here have collectively. They have thrown everything the collective West could throw at them in NATO, and their country has gotten bigger, badder, stronger, richer, wealthier, more friends, and are now poised to take over domination of the world currency. So yeah, they want war. That's the inevitable. I try not. This is a challenging thing for me. I got a shit ton of abuse on. I mean, it happens all the time, but um, it really triggers me when I hear others call me doom and gloom, and then I'm only about the doom and gloom, and it's fake news because it's doom and gloom. Well, you guys know me to be fake or wrong on anything in the 5 years, or anything that I haven't apologized for or corrected, anything. So yeah, it's tough to talk about this and not have people dial out. And my hope is, the last thing I want to do is for people to think it's the end of the world. That's not true. That's absolutely not true. Out of chaos comes the opportunity for order, but only if we are up to the task. And that's what they're counting on, is that we will not be up to the task, and they will be able to sell us into their digital slavery. So they're going to destroy it. They're going to wreck it. The question is, how will we respond? Will we take the 30 shekels of silver to, take the chip, the programming, the CBDC, whatever it is that they dangle in front of us, and say, this is the carrot, this is what will set you free? So I want people to be the most prepared. And I can't do that handing out cocoa and cookies, right? So things are going to get ugly. And somebody's got to have the guts to talk about the ugly stuff. So I get beat up for being doom and gloom, for not supporting a political party, for having learned more about the corruption within all of them. Yes, every single last one of them. There is, and maybe I shouldn't say that, because there are some that are so small I've never even heard of. So they'll let them off the hook. But the major ones that think that they have a play or a shot or are in the game, it's all irrelevant. It's 100% irrelevant to do nothing but distract everybody because you can't fix the swamp. All you can do is drain it. You can build dikes. You can put fresh water in, right? So yeah, somebody's got to have the guts to tell you the ugly stuff. And what this guy is telling you is that Europe is done. Europe is done. The EU is not this little wonder garden like Trudeau likes to pretend here. Ursula is as desperate as Trudeau is and as Singh is and the rest of these swamp zombies are. And we don't get access to a whole lot of the underground news there. So we don't get a lot from Austria, shall we say. And it's interesting to watch how Austria goes because if you know history, even the Roman Empire, Alexander the Great, not just a mustache guy, they all originate from the area called Austria. No region on this planet has had more influence on the trajectory or history of this planet than Austria. So I kind of pay attention to what kind of psychotic nonsense is going on in Austria, but kind of like Georgia, they're done with the reindeer games, and this is good news for humanity. But
soon maybe to be followed in the German state of Brandenburg, when their elections are held on the 22nd of September in just 10 days' time. But the real story is that a new right-wing alliance of EU political parties is gaining traction. The alliance, called Patriots for Europe, now has some 15 member parties from 12 member states, overseen by Jordan Bardella, the president of Marine Le Pen's National Rally. And these include Herbert Kickle's FPO. And more parties from more member states are expected to join. And that is not the only right-wing grouping. There is also the Europe of Sovereign Nations, which has 9 member state parties in it, including the German AfD. But as ever, the establishment system is doing its level best to at least sideline, if not destroy, groupings like this. And their main weapon is that even when these parties and groupings win a lot of seats, none of the other parties will work with them, let alone join in any coalition with them.
Seem familiar?
Something that, although within the rules, completely dismantles the whole structure of proportional representation. For example, say the Austrian FPO did win 30% of the vote, but was kept completely isolated by the other 70%. Then how is that 30% FPO vote being represented? That 30% will effectively equal 0 representation, won't it? Without proper engagement, it isn't proportional representation, is it?
Like our Senate.
It's just a complicated form of ignore the right, the first woke lefty past the post wins. You're handing the gold medal to those that came second and third.
Yep.
Only
100%.
the woke lefties would tolerate such a thing, as long as they benefit.
How is it that Jagmeet Singh has actual more stroke and influence and power than the Conservative Party of Canada collectively? That's the point that he's making. The guy with 3 seats, because he's buddied up to Sparkle Socks, gets more sway and influence over the representation than the rest of Canada. That's how messed up it is.
And that lack of engagement will only fuel more resentment and allow those right-wing parties and alliances to gather more support. The whole point of PR is that everyone is properly represented according to the votes cast. And when that does not happen as promised, then that's when the real problems start. And what happens when those right-wing parties start winning total majorities as more and more voters are ignored by the system? Will the hard left abolish elections, as too divisive maybe? They also, where possible...
That's not as bizarre as it seems, because they're literally talking about banning news and media and talking with journalists in the UK. This is happening in the UK because it's too divisive. So politicians will not, they're actually floating this law. Politicians not allowed to talk to news or media of any kind because it's too divisive. Nobody's allowed to talk to anybody because it's too divisive. Elections, too divisive.
Use lawfare against opponents of the woke agenda. An investigation was started into Herbert Kickle, for example, for alleged breach of trust. But the huge investigation into EU Parliament corruption, Qatargate, do you remember that? Has been completely memory holed and just about airbrushed out of existence.
Imagine that.
Despite Politico reporting in December last year that evidence from the European Parliament's graft investigation provides a record of more than 300 alleged attempts to manipulate EU democracy.
That's a pretty boss graft game. If you can afford to grift, basically what they're saying, to manipulate the EU election more than 300 times.
Seems there's a two-tier corruption system in the European Union. So what is the Austrian FPO offering their voters? Well, here are the eye-catching ones. The promotion of remigration, the returning of people to where their families came from.
Isn't that a wonderful idea? Isn't that brilliant? Now you'll know where I got it from. There's this little clip. They just didn't turn it into a hashtag. So I think that is brilliant. It's not racist. Just remigrate them. Send them home. The airlines could use the business and we'll save money. So if the government can afford it, it's not even about if the government can afford it. They'll just print whatever they need to get the damn job done. But it's going to be up to us to pull what is potentially going on in Austria. And this is the scary part. This is so similar to, if you don't understand the story of how Hitler actually came into power. Hitler didn't come into power promising to do all of the things that he did at the end of the war. He came into power because the left was so fucked up and so crazy, like it is right now, that people went so far right that they ended up with Hitler. And this is the scary part. If these psychopathic liberals don't let go, that equal and opposite reaction has almost the potential to snap us back that far the other way. And too much of anything is not good, no matter which way it is. And would I absolutely like to see a correction back to the right? Absolutely. But we need to be careful of how far that goes. But how far it goes to the left will have a lot to do with that. And Austria is pushing back. And it's for the same reasons. So it'd be interesting to see. We're going to have to be able to re-gauge our own momentum when the swing comes.
Especially for lawbreakers, as well as a reduction in accepting asylum seekers and limiting the time they can stay in the country. A citizens-only benefit system. An amendment to their constitution that, shock horror, states there are only 2 genders. And also banning what they term as political Islam. They would also provide for a referendum route to sacking ministers and even the government.
Really?
Now, what the FPO can do if it does win the most seats then comes down to whether they have
They're going to outlaw political Islam and actually make firing political officials for corruption law again. Gee, Austria's starting to look pretty good again, even if that's where Mustache Man originally originated from. I think this is some policy that we could get behind, particularly right out of the chute, this remigration. I don't think that I've heard a better idea all year than remigration.
An outright majority of 92 seats or more, which is extremely unlikely, or who they could form a ruling coalition with. And judging by recent elections within the EU, where right-wing parties win through, such as in France with Marine Le Pen's National Rally, and in the German state of Thuringia with the AfD, the left, which nowadays also includes those who like to call themselves centrists, always, as I've already said, reject doing any deals with them. And for some weird reason, they think that by blanking right-wing parties, they can neuter them forever, while they pursue their own lefty agendas to the full. Don't they realise that all that does is builds up frustration and resentment? And we in the UK do it.
That's, the perfect example of that is in the US. Even if they take Trump out, they don't get rid of the idea. They don't get rid of Make America Great Again. All they're going to do is really F around and find out, thinking that they're going to bully a bunch of conservatives. Those lefties really haven't thought this out very far with these attempts on Trump. That's just dumb, right? So yeah, it's the idea. It's the life that people are coming to stand for. So you don't need a hero. We don't need a hero in Canada. What we need to do is just to adopt the hardline negotiations with our politicians in lines of what it is that we collectively want. And I like the way this guy speaks about what Austria is doing. I like what Viktor Orban is doing in Hungary. I love what they're doing in Georgia. They're literally bringing back Nuremberg 2.0 to go after the people that proxied their country into a war on Russia. So in essence, what that means is the equivalent would be 10 years from now, them charging and trying Zelensky and all of his cronies for destroying Ukraine by waging a proxy war on Russia because somebody else was pulling the strings. So that's what Georgia is doing now. I hope that day comes for the Ukraine as well. So it's we don't need a leader, we don't need a peer, we certainly don't need a max, but we just need to. We need to learn how to negotiate. Protests and rallies are nothing but temper tantrums. They don't have a direction and a demand. These people need to understand that they work for us. If we don't give them cohesive cognitive orders and directions, what can we expect them to do? They're going to run around like minions. Why? Because they don't have a clear and concise order from the majority. And until we have the majority, that's going to be a problem, right? So,
2. It's now coming out that Nigel Farage and Lee Anderson could well be banned from presenting on GB News because Keir, the Neil Starmer's Labour Party government, is looking to clamp down further on broadcasting rules. The new Parliamentary Modernisation Committee, chaired by Labour's Lucy Powell, will decide whether paid outside engagements, such as MP media appearances, journalism and speeches, provide a benefit to the public or present a conflict of interest. Now, Powell is the leader of the House and is therefore a front bench minister, and committee chairs are normally held by backbenchers. So it looks to me like Labour is centralising all the power it can. Now, the more exposure a politician...
They just don't have a Senate to stack like Trudeau does to centralize the power and make everything else irrelevant.
...has, the more clout they can wield. But that also comes with the ever-present danger of fouling it all up with just one single slip. The media sword is, after all, double-edged. Or maybe Labour is worried that they might have to step up their media game and expose themselves to the potential pitfalls. I mean, let's look at what they're going to be considering again. Whether paid outside engagements, such as MP media appearances, journalism and speeches, provide a benefit to the public or present a conflict of interest.
basically, at this point, I guess the way to look at it is a lot of people I know follow Michelle Rempel. They follow her on Substack, they follow her on Facebook, and I hate to say it, but sometimes that is the first place that we get news is from people in the House. We know that they're compromised, but they're still trying to throw their counterparts under the bus. So we have to watch which of the swamp zombies is throwing the other swamp zombie team under the bus, but at the end of the day, they're all swamp zombies. I understand all that, right? But for them to say that none of them would in the future be allowed to talk to journalists or media outlets in any capacity is beyond absurd. Why? For your safety. Politicians aren't going to be allowed to talk to anybody in the media for your safety. It's just beyond comprehension. It glitches me out that the UK could actually be considering something like banning politicians from talking to people.
MPs talking to and with the public is a benefit or a conflict of interest. Sounds like they quite like their old-fashioned Westminster bubble and want to keep it that way, where the government puts out its press releases and spin-doctored statements and avoids scrutiny at every opportunity, while the media falls into line to ensure it keeps getting the morsels from the table to sell its product. And anything that upsets that apple cart must be stopped.
And that's the essence of it. Anything that disrupts them or they don't like must be stopped, right? And this one's going to make y'all feel warm and fuzzy, not and perhaps reconsidering the whole, maybe we need a campaign on remigration.
Many Canadians are concerned about the future of Canadian society. And now the government has decided unilaterally to bring in 5,000 Gazans. How is that going to impact Canada?
What could go wrong?
Well, I'm going to put that question to Sabrina Mado, who is a noted political columnist, really sharp person about politics. But before then, speaking of politics and media, please donate and subscribe to keep this on the air.
Well, since he did that, I'm going to take a second for my plug here right now, because I agree with him. If you're not state-funded media, you're probably doing this like I am through crowdfunding, crowdsourcing. I only get paid if you guys find enough value to feel to send me a few bucks to keep me in craft dinner and coffee. So I like to think that those journalists are the tip of the spear, and if you want to help me keep this free for everybody, because everything that I do is free, never behind a paywall, always will be, that is the best way to do it. Donate at whatsupcanada.org. All right, that's my self-indulgent plug of the day.
Now, Sabrina, you heard the intro. There's no debate in my mind, or that I ever saw, about the 5,000 Gazans. And most people know, and this could be a terrible generalization, that so many Gazans are brought up from the age of 1 to hate Jews.
He's being selective here. They hate everybody, but yes, in particular,
I interviewed the other day with a civilian Gazan who said, she's a smart-looking woman. She said, I've been taught to kill Jews. That's my job. What are we doing bringing that kind of force into Canada?
I think there's a real concern that there is a lot of radicalization within the population and a lot of links, obviously, to Hamas, which is a
you think?
terrorist organization in which perpetrated the horrific October 7th massacre. And Canadians are rightfully worried that we are not properly screening people coming in. And this is an obvious issue in Gaza where there are increased security concerns, but it's an issue overall. We just had a very high-profile case where two alleged terrorists were caught in Richmond Hill in the middle of a terrorist plot, and they were allowed into the country after one of them had actually filmed ISIS propaganda and violent acts. And not only was he allowed in, he was granted citizenship.
This is not somebody who slipped through and didn't have a history. I mean, as
video.
Dominic LeBlanc said, this one unfortunately slipped through. But I mean, we aren't researching this. But I mean, that changes society, Canadian society, with demonstrations in the last year. and the intimidation of businesses run by Jews. I mean, it's changing radically. Why would the government add to that change?
Again, I think that they are trying to have their cake and eat it too, that there's a certain element of the Liberal base who really wants to see measures like this. But unfortunately, the government has not proven any capacity to actually screen immigrants or refugees coming through. And we're seeing people with terrorist links, right? We're seeing people who are terrorist sympathizers. We're seeing other issues as well, where we're seeing agents of foreign authoritarian states, links to transnational gangs. The point is that we're letting in a lot of terrorists and criminals, and we don't know how many or where they are. And once they're here, we seem to have no ability to kick them out.
Well, there's the 2 Chinese spies in the labs in Winnipeg. And we knew it, the government knew about them for years and years. And then when there's an uproar, let them out of the country, as opposed to the assistant to the New York governor, who was arrested the other day. As soon as they found out, boom. You know,
Absolutely.
I mean, they're charged.
Yeah, just reading that news story before I came. I mean, and there was a woman in Markham who went missing and was murdered, and now her alleged killer has fled the country. And I believe the line in the news was, "We have no idea where he went after Hong Kong." So how does this keep happening? And this isn't an isolated incident. It's something that's on repeat. And obviously, in addition to the public safety issues and the national security issues, it's really going to further undermine the public's confidence in any sort of immigration or refugees in general. And that's a dangerous thing overall.
You put your finger on undermine public confidence. Sabrina, to the point. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
So I thought that was important for people to know. And Ali's dad, I want to bring this comment up here because at the end of the day, it's not our problem. Palestine, Israel, the fact that they want to have killed each other for the last 70 years, it is not our political problem. And if we do want to have a political problem, maybe we should focus on bringing peace over there rather than fighting wars in Ukraine and sending hundreds of billions of dollars to Ukraine, rather than bringing that fucking problem here and subjecting our society, our women, and our kids to an ongoing crime spree and an invasion against them. So at this point, that doesn't buy an argument from me as to it's their problem over there. So this is we're getting down to the tail end of this here, guys. I got a couple of minutes here from Warren Buffett and his prediction on investing in Canada.
Well, we are fortunate to have a number of operations up in Canada. It goes across many of our operating entities, and then as Warren touched on, all the businesses that we have a piece of that we're invested in are up in Canada. So the presence is significant. We're always looking at making incremental investments there because it's an environment we're very comfortable with. Warren touched on understanding the U.S. environment, business environment, and I would put Canada equally in that bucket, that we understand it and would be comfortable. And I would say the economy moves very closely to the U.S. So the results we're seeing out of our various businesses that report both their U.S. and Canadian operations aren't drastically different. And there's a few that we're on the energy side, for example, we make very substantial investments up there in Alberta. But again, it's very consistent with how that economy is growing, and I would see it being very consistent with what we see here. Warren, anything to?
Yeah, no, we obviously there aren't as many big companies up there as there are in the United States, but when we get I got one from Canada just the other day that I sent over to Greg too. When we see anything that's suggesting an idea that's of a size that would interest here and meets other requirements, we don't have any hesitancy about putting big money in Canada. And there are things we actually can do fairly well, where Canada could benefit from Berkshire's participation. We did it some years ago, not that many years ago, but there was a financial institution up there, and they had a problem. And as I remember, 30 plus, various other people that were kicking it around. And meanwhile, the place was getting close to the edge for not a fundamental problem. And Ted Weschler from our office went up there. I heard about it on a Monday or something, and Ted Weschler went up there and we offered a solution in a couple of days to something that was getting close to the brink. So we do not feel uncomfortable in any way, shape, or form putting our money into Canada. In fact, we're actually looking at one thing now. But they still have to meet our standards on terms of what we get for our money. But they don't have a mental, we don't have any mental blocks about that country. And of course, there's a lot of countries we don't understand at all. So Canada, it's terrific when you've got a major economy, not the size of the U.S., but a major economy that you absolutely, you feel confident about operating there.
So at the end of the day, basically what that clip was about is, and why I wanted people to understand that is, we talked about this here, it was a week or two ago, about who actually owns BlackRock. 47% of it is owned by Berkshire Hathaway, which Buffett owns, or which is owned in its entirety by the Bank of America, which Buffett owns in its entirety. So you're Paul, you're right. He literally said nothing except for the fact that his company helps out big projects and has in the last couple of years here if they meet the standards. And the point of the standards is the DEI ESG standards. That is BlackRock standards. Those are the standards that are compliant and being sought after by Mr. Buffett, right? So that's part and parcel of what drives the BlackRock bus here and Mr. Buffett.
The Canadian government is trying to
He is
orchestrate a
93.
stealth bailout of the banking system, once again using...
This is the one that's going to piss you off, guys, and this is going to be the last one of the night. I don't think I have. I do have another short one right after this.
the CMHC as the vehicle for that. So we're going to get into what's going on. So Ottawa to expand 30-year amortizations, raise insured mortgage cap. Just a warning, I may lose it during this video because I think this is just completely insane. And it also makes my blood boil because it's just open air corruption that is right in front of people's eyes and they just can't see it. They can't work it out. It's just absolutely crazy. So anyway, the CMHC, which I personally think should be scrapped. But anyway, they're just expanding it. So the Liberal government on Monday announced proposed changes to the Canadian mortgage market, expanding the availability of 30-year amortizations and raising the cap on insured mortgage products. So basically, insured mortgage prime loans, they're really risky loans that mortgages with a 30-year amortization, and that basically right there allows them to just be debt slaves to the banksters even more, and they're taking on 5 years more of interest rate risk, remember, as well. So the exposure to risk there is increasing, and they're allowing the amount of equity that they put into it to come way down to 5% on a $1.5 million home, which they're expanding the cap by 50% from 1 million to 1.5 million. That is $75,000. That is completely insane. You guys just watched the unbelievable loss video, and I'll link it at the end of this one just in case you haven't seen that video. But look at some of the losses that those people are incurring and think about $75,000. I mean, it's hard to find a loss of that little amount. You're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars. And that's why these are just insanely risky loans. If you've traveled or gone to any other country in the world, you'll know that this type of lending only happens with government intervention, and it's the taxpayer ultimately that is backing these complete garbage loans. And that's what is so infuriating to me about this, is they're just complete garbage loans. So additionally, the Liberal Liberals are raising the price cap for taking out an insured mortgage to $1.5 million compared with the previous $1 million. Again, just completely ridiculous and stupid. Extending amortizations helps reduce the monthly burden of carrying the mortgage, though a homeowner is likely to pay more interest over the life of the loan. So once again, that is a complete win for the banksters and the banking system. I mean, how is the first-time home buyer winning by this? I don't know. I mean, it is just so obvious to me that this has nothing to do with the first-time home buyer, and it has more to do with the imploding real estate bubble in Canada and the fact that we know on this channel that some of the banks are in a distressed state right now. The repo market volume speaks for itself. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to work out what's going on here. So under the proposed changes, an individual could put down between 5 and 20% of the value of a home worth up to 1.5 million, lowering the size of the down payment needed. Again, that is the amount of equity that they have in the home to start with. And just remember, guys, mortgages, the actual word mortgage comes from a French expression, which is essentially debt for life. It's debt slavery. So they're just continuing that tradition here. And what's so interesting about this is they're just allowing more and more risk in a market that, as I said, we have just proved is very, very risky right now. And they're just saying, hey, this is a perfect time to jump in with the minimum amount down. I mean, it's completely insane. And yeah, what would you expect from the Canadian government? It doesn't matter whether it's Conservatives, Liberals, or the NDP. This is coming from the underlying power structures from behind the government that I constantly talk about on this channel. This is why I don't believe there'll be any change when the government changes, because you look at what's happening, it's all coming from the banksters themselves. These policies, they are not government policies instigated by the Liberals. If they are, then it just shows how brain dead they really are. So either way, it's just a...
This is the Mark Carney stench already permeating out of the Liberals and their tactical consent, their tactics to extract more, take more risk, get further in debt. We're gonna take it all.
Net loss here, it's just completely insane. So the proposals come after the Liberals instituted new changes as of August 1st to allow 30-year amortizations for first-time home buyers taking out insured mortgages on new builds. The funny thing about that is, as well, is if you look at new builds, they're priced like 20-30% higher than the used home market. And soon enough, I'm going to have an interview that's going live with Mitch Wexler, and we talk about this insane appraisal fraud that is going on, because how on earth does somebody get a loan out for a house that they're trying to sell because it's new construction for 30% more than the used resale home market around it? It's because it's an entirely corrupt system, and the system, as Mitch says in the interview, should not allow for this to happen. And the fact that this happens just shows how much fraud is going on, and it comes from the banks. It also happens on the end of the person taking out the loan. There's rampant fraud there. So it's just completely insane. Freeland was asked Monday about concerns that adding more buyers to the housing pool would drive up home prices and end up further eroding affordability. She defended the move as giving a leg up to younger Canadians. Just replace younger Canadians with banksters, because that's what's really going on, offering them an advantage over established owners in the market. How is offering them a more risky loan an advantage? I mean, again, they're either brain dead or this is coming from the banksters themselves. And I'll let you be the judge on which one that is. I think I know which camp that I'm in here. So very interesting. And let me know in the comments, do you think this actually comes from the government, or do you think it comes from the power structures behind? So with these measures, first-time home buyers are going to be in a stronger position. We think it's the right thing to do. I mean, they just parrot that all the time, her and Trudeau. We want people to be building more homes faster in Canada. And for them to do that, it's critical that there are buyers out there for those homes, she said. But again, they don't understand why there's no buyers for these homes. And you look at Canada housing starts right now, they have ticked up a bit, but they are not very high when you compare them to how much the population is growing. And that's what they're always parroting. I mean, there's millions of basement suites that have come online over the past 5 years, and that's not even took into account with the housing inventory. And when they quote these numbers that they've got the lowest amount of homes in the G7 or something like that, it doesn't take into account the millions of basement suites that are coming online. But anyway, the reason why housing starts aren't doing so well, and the reason why people aren't buying new construction, is because it's priced way higher than the used resale market. So you've got to be brain dead or after one of these really dodgy loans in order to buy there. Because if you, and I've literally got a video coming out about this where I'm literally flying the drone and I say, look at this community here. This community here is 30% more expensive because it's a new home community and you get tiny homes for that money. And then right across the highway, you've got a community where you can buy homes for 30% less on bigger lots. It's just completely insane. Again, how do the appraisals work for those types of loans? It just shows the absolute corruption in this housing market, and also the corruption with this government as well, and the banksters, because this is a huge win for the banksters. So anyway, if you've enjoyed this video,
So that is Market Mania. I'll add the link to that specific video in the Substack. It'll come out tomorrow morning. Good channel to follow and plug into. We talk about a lot of the stuff that he talks about every Friday. We talk about that with Bankers, Bandits, Bullion, and Bucks with Bryce. And he's been talking about this for quite some time. I got some great comments here. I'll pull up just before. I'm the same way, little farmer. 100%. You're gonna need a mortgage for a tent soon, and then a permit to park it for sure. Dolores, I bet you are. They are absolutely scum. Yep. It's about wealth extraction. This demolition of Canada is about extracting all of our wealth, bleeding us dry, sucking the corpse dry while it's still working, trying to get as much out of it. And right now, they can't fill the wheelbarrow fast enough, 100%. Gangster bankers, 100%. Plastic money came in, yeah, Canada went bankrupt, yeah. Right, so... All right, last clip here, guys. You guys are going to love this one. Some old familiar faces here in this one.
Hello, welcome back, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. Have you noticed recently that the volume and the number of completely conflicting messages has increased? It's gone up. One day, we hear Fed Chair Jerome Powell assure us that the U.S. economy is doing well.
So I'm in lots and lots of international discussions as part of my job. And the story for the last 2 years has been just how exceptional the performance of the U.S. economy has been. And that's not a secret.
Obviously,
clearly the U.S. economy has performed very well compared to sort of our advanced economy colleagues.
Is there any country in the world with a central bank, any advanced economy that's performing better?
Better as a central bank?
Any economy that's an advanced economy that has a central bank that performs better than us?
None comes to mind. As I think of the majors, the answer would be no.
Okay, thank you.
Then the next day, Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen admits that the process of de-dollarization is leading to a weaker dollar. Then on the third day, another Fed official says inflation is heading to that 2% target rate. So you really need to start feeling good about that right now. On the fourth day, well, you know how the story goes. I came across a really interesting report that was published by the International Monetary Fund just a couple of weeks ago. And even though it is fair to remain skeptical, I think we should remain skeptical of the official data. We know why. This particular report is worth paying attention to. The IMF finally admitted that the surge in U.S. debt actually poses risks not just to the United States economy, but to the global economy. And I think it is important to put this in context. Very often we discuss the national debt crisis. And by the way, last time I checked, which was just a couple of days ago, the national debt balance was nearing 35 trillion with a T dollars. We discussed this crisis in an isolated way, failing to really take a step back to understand that in the worst case scenario, it means a devastating blow to the European economies, as well as a significant amount of damage everywhere else. The US economy is indeed a major risk to the entire world. The IMF is very concerned that the US economy is slowing and that persistent, elevated inflation only makes matters worse. And it may result in a global recession. Whether or not it is by design, I will let you judge by yourself. But take a look at this video.
We have now has actually broken down, only we haven't quite recognized it. And so you need to create a new one. And this is the time to do it.
In the United States.
Anybody recognize that talking tater tot? And her role with who she's sitting there with? Interesting how these guys are talking about exactly what's going on.
How worried are you about the budget deficit and maybe about the possibility of inflation?
Well, certainly a decline in the value of the dollar is necessary in order to compensate for the fact that the U.S. economy will remain rather weak, will be a drag on the global economy. China will emerge as the motor replacing the U.S. consumer. And of course, it's a smaller motor because the Chinese economy is much smaller. So the world economy will have less of a motor. So it will move forward slower than it has in the last 25 years.
That motor that he's talking about is the real economic drivers of a thriving economy. That is accessibility to cheap energy and resources for survival. So by continuously paring down our manufacturing and our access to cheap, affordable energy has been these meat muppets like this one right here, these two in this video, that have been slowly choking off our motor of manufacturing and food supply.
But
and energy.
China will be the engine driving it forward, and the U.S. will be actually a drag that's being pulled along through a gradual decline in the value of the dollar. So there would be a slow decline in the value of the dollar, a managed decline. And that would be the adjustment that it needs to be accomplished.
So there are two red flags to be paying attention to. Budget deficits, meaning the government constantly and regularly spends more than it collects. And the second major issue is the surging debt load. The IMF says those two factors pose, quote, a growing risk to the global economy. With that, the IMF finally calls on the US government to see that there is indeed now a pressing need, they refer to it as a pressing need, to reduce debt. This is going to be a widely unpopular political move, of course, which is why I personally believe that it will not happen. It simply cannot happen because following the elections in November, regardless of the outcome, regardless of...
At this point, any politician wanting to do the right thing in any capacity is almost a suicide pill for the entire establishment. It is literally why we will never see any politician move towards what is actually doing right for the people.
Who's in the office. The president and a new administration will never worry about national debt as a top priority. There are not many ways, by the way, to reduce the debt burden. You have to either increase income taxes, who wants that, or...
Isn't it interesting that Uncle George there bought in so heavily into the American political elite and the Canadian political elite? Things that make me go, coinkydink? I don't buy it. Any coincidence.
Or you need to cut funding for a variety of so-called entitlement programs. And I suppose the third option is to do both of those things simultaneously, but that literally equates to political suicide, so we won't see that. It means that they will keep kicking the can down the road. Even though the debt ceiling got suspended last year in 2023, I would like to remind you that Congress will have to deal with it next year in 2025. It got suspended until after the election, so they don't have to fight about it. They will either lift the debt ceiling or they will have to face the consequences. And of course, that means the possibility of the United States defaulting on its debt. So there's really no good way out of that. In my opinion, it's either more debt or a default. The IMF report also
die of poisoning, slow or fast.
Shares concerns that central banks would have to keep borrowing costs high to deal with inflation. If you have been a subscriber of mine for a while, you may recall that the IMF has issued very similar reports, similar warnings earlier this year. This is because a number of economists and even the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development said that adding debt at a time of high interest rates actually backfires. It limits the ability of the United States to meet other needs, including its top priorities, defense needs, and caring for its aging population.
Neither of which are happening anywhere on this continent. Our militaries have been neutered, and our seniors are the carbon they can't seem to reduce quick enough for their liking.
The latest IMF warning is, of course, nothing new. But it is important, in my opinion, to understand that all signs really do point to the fact that it's really smart right now to prepare for an economic downturn. Thank you for watching.
And that's a very polite way of talking about the implosion, the manufactured demolition of our economies. The meat muppet herself is absolutely denying is an issue or a problem. Because people, can, take a greater risk on their mortgage and go and buy themselves into a greater slavery or a more assured collapse of losing everything, owning nothing, and probably not being happy. So that's a wrap for tonight, guys. Holy mackerel, I went almost 2 hours. I thought, I was going to have, barely get through an hour with everything that I had here, but I guess I had a lot of extras to add to it. So hope that was an informative show tonight, guys. I hope you enjoyed that. As always, like I said, get all of the details, all of the links in the Substack tomorrow. You can get that from my website, what'supcanada.org, or whatsupcanada.substack.com. You'll find links there if you want to buy me a coffee. I love my coffee. It's my almost intravenous support system. If you've got something that's important, a whistleblower story, something like that, contact at whatsupcanada.org. And last but not least, help me stay in the fight and keep this free for everybody. Support your favorite independent journalist, whoever that might be. And if this is the independent journalist that you appreciate, love, and support, that's the best way to do it, where nobody takes a piece or a cut off of the top, guys. I got some amazing interviews coming up in the next little while. Had some really brilliant meetings with some gatherings of podcasters and whatnot from around the planet today, and they're going to be making their way here to talk to us. And I'm literally from Denmark, Germany, Australia, New Zealand, from all over the place, guys. Peter McIsaac's going to be joining us on the show. We're going to have a real burst of amazing guests and information coming up in the next little while. So please do get plugged in. And I did see some comments there about stop buying from the box stores, and there's no way I can agree with you more on any of that. I only have 3 partners with this program because they all serve to fight the cabal for the same reason. We have indoor growing equipment so people can get their, what they're consuming out from underneath of those poison skies. And we have precious metals with Bryce every Friday, a new World Precious Metals. And then we have our other partners for almost everything else except for fresh groceries. It's the only thing I can't get there. But I promise if you shower or if you wash yourself or you do laundry or you don't live in the dirt, this is the solution for getting away from the big box stores. And it's 100% guaranteed. So with that note, I love you all. I'll see you tomorrow, same time, same place. Bye for now, my fellow patriots, prisoners, and hostages. Bye for now.